Assalamu alaikum. My name is Idris Latera. I'm an Aussie, so g'day. And very proud to be of a revert into Islam. I was originally raised a Catholic. I'm from a European family. My parents are mixed Italian and Norwegian. And I went to a Catholic school and had all the trimmings of a Catholic education, did my first communion, and I actually thought about being a priest at one point, but that was probably a silly thought that lasted a couple of weeks. But my journey into Islam, I guess, took a long time. I say that because I searched for God for about 15 years. I came to a decision in my life that for me, the Catholic faith had some holes and some gaps and things that just didn't make sense. And so I spent about 15 years searching for God. I believed that God existed, and for me at that time, I believed the Bible was correct and accurate. And so I spent my time, years, researching the Bible, doing Bible study, visiting different churches, visiting different communities, and I was always going back to the Bible as a reference to try and find, for me, what was authentic religion. And I guess for me, the more I read the Bible, the more I saw its holes, its potholes, the gaps, the things that just didn't make sense for me. I eventually got to the point that I realized that I just couldn't find this authentic Christianity. I still believed in God, and I guess I was very confused, but at the same time knew that God existed, and I'm lucky to have always had that feeling in me. I think I come from a spiritual family, although me and my mum, my sister specifically, we have different spiritual paths. We've always been interested in spirituality and religion. I work in the health industry, and for me science is something which is an important part of discovering the universe and how you fit in the universe. And when things logically don't make sense for me, I often dismiss them. So then my introduction to Islam was not logical, and it definitely wasn't intellectual either. It took me by surprise. In fact, I never had any interest in Islam at all. I thought that Muslims were grumpy Arabs, and I never had any Muslim friends. I'd never been to a mosque. I had no association or understanding about Islam at all, and to be perfectly honest, I had absolutely no interest at all. Over time, going back to my biblical quest, I guess you could say, my search for truth, one thing that I became interested in was how the Abrahamic religions fitted into the world. You know, we have Judaism and Christianity, and one of the fascinating things now that I laugh at is that I never believed or understood that Islam was part of that Abrahamic family. So my conversion to Islam was not logical or intellectual. In fact, I was in Singapore as a tourist. I was there for a seminar. I was looking around like a typical tourist in the city, and I came across a mosque for the first time. And it's the first time in my life I've ever stood in front of a mosque. I guess I've seen photos of them before, maybe in movies and stuff, but this is the first time I had seen one up close. And it was beautiful, the big Sultan Mosque in Singapore City, bright and colourful. And I remember noticing how different it felt compared to a church. For those of you who've been to churches, they're often dark and gloomy and cold, and I just had this feeling that the mosque was bright and colourful, and it seemed almost inviting. Anyway, like a typical silly tourist, I was taking some selfies and some photos in front of the mosque, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I heard the Azaan, the Islamic call to prayer, and it brought me to tears. I'd never heard it before. I didn't even know what the words were, but still to this day, in fact even now I think about it, there's something beautiful about that call to prayer. It's an invitation from God to come and worship Him. So that was the introduction for me to Islam. I was fortunate that I was with a couple of local Singaporeans who turned out to be Muslim. I had no idea that they were Muslims actually, and they noticed how I'd been touched by hearing the Azaan, and I went, they offered to take me inside the mosque and to have a look. So I went inside, and I'm looking around, and I noticed just the complete contrast to what I was used to as a Catholic. No crosses, no statues, no candles. It wasn't dark, it was filled with light, it was colourful, and there were all these brothers coming in, lining up in really super straight lines, ready for prayer. And it was a beautiful experience. I was with a brother who invited me to join them in prayer. I had no idea, no idea what I was doing, but I just lined up, and he said, just copy me. I said, okay. And I just noticed that there were people of all sorts of shapes and colours and sizes, black, brown, white, yellow, chubby, skinny, fat, tall, skinny, short, everything, and they were lined up together in these perfectly straight lines as a brotherhood. And then of course the Imam, the Sheikh, began to recite the Quran, and it was just such a beautiful experience for me to feel I guess the humbleness of the way that Muslims pray. It's such a humbling experience to put your head down and prostrate on the ground, something I've never done before. And I remember thinking to myself that if you were brought up on an island and you had never had any interaction with other humans before, and you saw Muslims pray, you would know instinctively that they were worshipping God. I remember feeling emotional as I stood there with Muslim brothers on either side of me, listening to the Quran being recited. I had absolutely no idea what they were saying, but it touched my heart. And from there I met a couple of sheikhs in Singapore and here in Perth, and I think that's when the intellectual part started to kick in. I had all these questions about who is God. I had my own definition of who I thought God was, and you know, comparing it to Christians and all of the different Christian congregations and churches, comparing it to the Bible and seeing that, as I felt, there are no Christians that actually practice the message of what Jesus taught. The more I learnt about Islam, the more it just clicked and clicked and clicked and clicked, and I realised this is what I've been searching for. It's an answers to my intellectual curiosity about who is God, who is his authentic, or what is his authentic religion, and at the same time a peacefulness. In fact, you know, if you look at the word Islam and you take the I away, it's salam, which is peace. I've been just amazed by how me as a person, I've changed. I'm a lot calmer and happier, and I guess I feel a lot more at peace because I have peace in my life. There is a certain structure, and there are certain cultural things that you go through changing when you become a Muslim, such as the 5 daily prayers, making ablution, making wudu, all these sorts of things, fasting, giving charity. But they're beautiful things, and I found them to be a big blessing in my life. So if you're searching for the truth, open your heart and your mind, and I give you an invitation to read the Quran, meet with some brothers, visit a mosque, learn how we pray, and inshallah Allah will guide you in his straight path. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. There's heaps. It's probably hundreds. Look, for me, I didn't really have a very positive opinion of Muslims before, and that's very stupid because I didn't know any. I think that's the first misconception. Get to know good Muslims, and I stress good Muslims. Associate with some good Muslims, come to a mosque, and you'll see that they're beautiful, joyful, happy people. I used to have, and I often say this, and it's probably a bad thing to say, but I did honestly think that Muslims were just grumpy Arabs. And the truth is that Arabs are not actually grumpy. A lot of the Arabs I know are really funny, silly people. They've got a great heart, they've got great deen, they've got good focus on their spiritual life. And more importantly, Arabs are the minority within the Muslim community. The majority are Asians. Indonesia, I believe, is the biggest Muslim country by population. So that's one misconception, that Muslims don't know how to smile, that they smell bad, that they're grumpy, that they don't associate with non-Muslims. All of that is completely false. In fact, it's sunnah to smile. It's sunnah to smell good. And I found the brotherhood that I've been, I guess, accepted into. Even just here in Perth, we have such a multicultural, diverse range of nationalities. If I was to hang out with a group of brothers, for example, there's generally at least 6 or 7 different nationalities from literally all over the globe. I can honestly say that I have friends and brothers now of every different shape, size and colour that I could ever imagine, and that's a beautiful thing. Another thing is that Islam has absolutely nothing to do with violence or terrorism. And it's a funny question because it's non-Muslims who ask me this question. They say, well, aren't you scared about terrorism? No. Islam has absolutely nothing to do with terrorism. Islam is a religion of peace. It's a religion that does not encourage violence. It's a religion that encourages peace, and for all of the men, women and children around this world to follow the straight path of one God, Allah. As we Muslims say, Alhamdulillah, no. Honestly, no. I guess I'm very blessed in that way, but I was very careful. I think maybe the mistake that some people might make when they embrace a new religion, particularly maybe Islam, is they change everything about themselves. All of a sudden they start dressing in a particular way, they start talking in a different particular way, which is encouraged and a wonderful thing. But I think they might do that too quickly, too aggressively to friends and family, and so they ostracize people. I did the opposite. I was very, very patiently discerning the right time to tell my family. In fact, when I became a Muslim, I went to Indonesia shortly afterwards for a business trip, and I came home and I walked through the door of my mum's house. She hadn't seen me for several months, and she looked at me and she said, "What happened to you? Something's different." And I said, "Yeah, I've changed." And we spent some time together later that day, just talking, hanging out together, and she just kept on looking at me. She's like, "You're different, something's happened." And I said to her, "I've become a Muslim." And she said, "Oh." And she thought about it, and she first went something like, "Huh?" She was a bit like confused. She said, "What? Muslim?" I said, "Yeah, Muslim." But alhamdulillah, it's been a wonderful experience because she noticed the positive change in me first, as opposed to negative things. So it's helped her to embrace me being a Muslim. And to date, I have not had a single bad experience with a family or a friend because I think I've been careful and I've been, I guess, considerate of them, that they not only understand, more importantly, why I've become a Muslim, but they feel that it's a positive thing, and alhamdulillah it has been. Yeah. Yes, I am single. Marriage is a very important thing in Islam. In fact, we're taught by our Prophet, peace be upon him, that getting married completes half of your deen, and deen is our religion. So yes, I am single, and I am also carefully discerning that hopefully, InshaAllah, as we say, if God willing, I'll be blessed with a wife one day. Yeah, it's hard, right? Because when you're brought up in a particular way, if your parents set a certain set of rules upon you, you often want to do the complete opposite to that. I feel just in my heart, having met different brothers at different times of their life, and we all have our own journey to our Creator. I believe that probably the most important thing is to stop and think about what life would be like without your deen. I've met Muslims who were brought up in good Muslim families, and they've given it away. For example, you know, drinking, partying, alcohol, drugs, that sort of stuff, and their life falls apart, and then they almost have to end up literally on their knees begging to come back to that safe and peaceful place that Islam is. I think when you're young, it's hard to imagine life in the future, and it's difficult to imagine what life would be like as a non-Muslim. And maybe it almost seems appealing, but I guess the important thing is to focus on your relationship with Allah, and how we've been blessed with knowledge that other people try very hard to get. I searched for God for 15 years. I would love to have not wasted those 15 years.